Hey everyone, hope you've had an amazing week as usual. Hopefully by now you'll have seen the bike build video I did recently, my new competition trials bike. So it's only fit that I go and put it through its paces. So I'm here at the second round of the Scottish Nationals in Newcastleton, which interestingly, this river here is actually the Scottish-English border. So I am in Scotland. Now I'm in England. So England, Scotland, England, Scotland. It is in the middle of nowhere. It's a really cool place, no signal here at all, but as you can see we've got some rocks and stuff behind me. Now I almost didn't turn up here today because yesterday I rode the bike for the first time. I'm going to admit I'm struggling with it a little bit and I ended up rolling my ankle and it is pretty sore. So I've got ibuprofen in the system and I'm just going to grin and bear it. Now we're about to start, there's a good bunch of guys here, so let's just dive into this.
Thank you very, very much to everybody who's travelled today.
David Johnston got us all started and went over the rules for the new riders. We then got our punch cards and off we went.
And that's you ready to go. Okay.
As with previous comps, I've teamed up with Ross MacArthur, who was kind enough to help me film. I was curious to see how I'd get on, so I went first.
Number 5.
I've ridden this bike for 30 mins max, and to say it feels weird is an understatement. Compared with my Hex, it's a lot longer, both with a wheelbase and cockpit. My muscle memory still thinks I'm on a short bike, so I get a little confused when my wheels don't go exactly where I expect them. But on the other hand, the tyres are a lot grippier than I'm used to, and let me get away with my slightly dodgy accuracy. Turning this bike is probably the strangest feeling, as the 140mm stem makes it feel like the bike hinges in the middle. But it is a trials bike and not a trails bike, so fast cornering isn't super vital. And the stretched feel does make it much nicer on the rear wheel, yet still allows you to get your weight over the front wheel too. Despite it being much better on the rear wheel than a street trials bike, it still took me a few attempts to get set up for this gate. I was lucky to let me have that, as my back wheel might have wandered close to the wrong side of a marker. Not that I got much further though, as I did pass through a wrong coloured gate getting down the other side.
There's always one gate. Thanks guys, nice one.
Well, not the best start. I'm feeling fairly sketchy, but one thing that feels good is the rear brake. Not to say the front brake doesn't feel good too, but it's a lot noisier than I'm used to. That's the payoff for the increased front tyre grip and wheel/fork stiffness and hooks I guess. But what I'd give for this performance with no sound. At least the rear brake is quiet, so I used that as much as I could instead. The only annoying thing with the rear brake is some pad knocking noise. I can't feel it when I'm riding, but the noise makes the bike sound like a sack of spanners, which can be off-putting. Brakes aside, this section's been going well. I decided to make use of the better rear wheel control and send this gap that demands accuracy. Unfortunately, I put my weight slightly too far left and couldn't get the grip on the front, so a foot had to go down. After that, I had no choice but to be noisy with a steep roll down to sharp corner. Now it's places like this I'd normally dab, as it's like riding on marbles, and the tyres can just give way, so I take it extra cautiously.
This bike's such hard work.
And because it's so loose with little rocks that like to catch a tyre or give way and slide, I'm finding it hard to get a rest as I'm constantly fighting the bike. The last gate wasn't huge, but I was tired by this point. I did manage to get through it though and finish with a good score. That's more like it.
It's like I feel like I'm just tensed the entire time. It's like, Thank you very much. Cheers.
I think that tensed up feel is from the length of the bike and the bar angle. More of my weight is being supported by my arms, and they're not in the same relaxed position they are on my street trials bike. Looking back at my riding, I certainly look stiffer than usual, even just riding along the flat in this next section. And speaking of this section, it had a lot of loose rock and was quite long. My goal was to try and ride efficiently and not mess up on the small stuff. This means being accurate and avoiding mistakes that cause lots of hopping. The more hops you do, the quicker you get tired. These were the first bigger moves, and actually quite nice, because they were solid rock and it was easier to trust the tyres would stay where I put them. As soon as I hit the loose stuff, it becomes a lot sketchier again. To save time, I keep on the rear wheel to turn and get through the next gate. The brake still clunks, but I'm loving how it's performing. But I really need to work on my rear wheel accuracy, as I wanted to keep on one wheel and then turn and gap to the red gate behind me. Instead, I'm forced to drop down, which will take longer and use more energy.
Anticipate coming down here.
I also haven't mentioned yet that I'm doing red route, expert class, as it isn't a yellow/elite route this day. If I do well, I might do a yellow at a national level comp sometime. But that's if I do well. This red gate is causing some difficulty. Again, I forget how long the bike is, but fortunately it doesn't cost me any points. I then almost slipped back down due to not pulling the back brake fully. I thought I was more on top than I was and didn't need full power. And again, lucky not to lose any points. A messy end, but I cleaned the section. Only just though, with a mere 2 seconds left.
I'll take that.
When you're ready.
Next up was David's section, which had 2 gates I thought I might struggle with. The first being this rock, which I think I could have side-opped up, but having not really done one of these on this bike yet, I decided to do a wheel swap instead. A longer bike definitely makes those easier, and I'm pleased that worked so well. This rock was an awkward shape but didn't cause any issues. But now I'm at the biggest single move of the section, or maybe even comp. It looked small on camera, but it looked huge when I was next to it. Not many options for me here, other than to try a side op. The plan being to land on a ledge slightly below the top, which ended up working pretty well. Only 2 gates left, and they don't look too hard, but this is where silly mistakes can happen. First one done, and the second had a slightly more tech setup, but once in the right place, the rest was quite easy. Another section cleaned, and I'm starting to get my groove now. The last section of this lap, 3 in total, was probably the longest, and still had some big moves too. The plan is to try and be quick and efficient again. I don't want to spend too much time setting up or hopping through the smaller gates, or taking longer routes, so I beeline to the next gate as soon as I'm through the first. Again, not much time spent setting up looking, I get straight onto and through the gate. I wasn't as efficient up to the next gate as planned. I thought I was going to hit my pedal, but I'm quick enough for it not to matter too much. Like I mentioned in the previous section, it's easier to ride bigger solid rocks as you can be more confident with the tyres. I'm definitely feeling more confident as I get used to the bike too. But I'm going to test that confidence with this next gate. Rather than spending more time and energy dropping down and climbing back up, I'm going to try and get a narrow bits of rock and cut a corner. A test of accuracy and certainly a risk, but it paid off and that was a good time saver. Amusingly, I actually found turning around facing downhill to be almost as hard as the gates. Long stems and tilted bars don't help with this. Only 2 gates left now, and the tiredness is kicking in. I thought I could get into a wheel swap position on this first gate, but made a bit of a mess and dropped my first dab. Super annoying. The last gate is a hook, and this is where our front rim brake really shines, as it really makes the front tyre dig in and get maximum grip. I don't think this would have gone as nicely if I'd had a front disc brake instead.
Lap 2.
Lap 2 started the same, but with a little more confidence getting up and over the first couple of gates. The side op still took me a couple of setup attempts, but once up I head a different direction to avoid going through the wrong gate like last time. The last gate looks small, and it is, but I've not done the technique needed to roll up this on this bike yet, so I made a complete mess of it.
Come on.
Not the nicest, but at least I got out of the section this time. I don't have a great start the next section, with a mistake on the first rock hitting my bash guard.
Hiya, Bond Racket.
Yeah.
I do manage to get set up for the narrow gap again, but for some reason I lean to the left like my first lap and have to drop another dab.
Oh, again. Exactly the same as last time.
No more mistakes after that, but I was annoyed that was a worse score than my first lap.
Bit messier than last time. Thank you very much.
No dramas in the next section, getting clean through the first few gates. I did want to get the line I aborted last time on the big rock, but ended up doing even worse. That was very close to failing the section. If your back wheel goes through a gate, you can't reverse back through it. My rear hub was right on the line. But so far no dabs, however I have made this harder than it needed to be.
Oh, God.
I did try to keep it to rear and turn and gap like my original plan, but I didn't get close, so I had to drop down again. I ended up rushing this next part and getting an annoying dab. I was clean down to the finish, but like the last section, annoyed I did worse than last time.
Just the one dab, 50.
I was a bit concerned with this section, as it had two big moves I wasn't sure I could repeat from the first lap. I didn't need to worry though, as I did them cleaner than on my first lap. The next two gates went smoothly too, and I got my first clean section of the second lap. About time. This next long section was also a concern, as I knew it was going to be tiring, but the process was the same. Be quick and efficient. I was much quicker than last time and got off to a good start. A silly mistake trying to get set up on the narrow shortcut cost me a dab, but I haven't dropped down, so I continue with my plan. This is the rock I dabbed on last lap, and rather than try the same move, I go for a simple side up, which worked out way better. I make use of the front rim brake again by hooking the last rock and making it out to the finish, one dab worse than last time.
Thank you. Thanks for observing.
Yeah. No
Cheers.
Time for the last lap, and I was comfortably clean up to the side up in the first section, which I then got up with no issues. I didn't do any better at the next gate though, but my inner Chris Aykroyd came out and I accidentally copied one of his signature moves.
Chris Aykroyd.
Maybe a slight improvement riding wise, but the same score as last time.
Thanks very much. Cheers. Thanks for observing.
I'm yet to clean this section, but I know I can, so time to try my hardest. I tried to set up for the gap I've done previously, but I lose my balance and drop down. Turns out a side up back up is easier than the gap, and I probably should have done this the last couple of laps. So far so good. I'm feeling more comfortable on the bike this lap, and still loving the brakes. No issues with arm pump, which is amazing. Took 3 laps, but I eventually get a clean in this section. A good start the next section too, and my most confident climb up these rocks yet. I was determined to get this turn on a big rock, and after a little rest I managed to stomp it. Stoked. Just wish I did it like that for the first 2 laps. Out of the end, and another clean.
Third time's the charm. Thanks so much for observing.
That's not a problem.
Cheers.
Next, the only section I've cleaned on both previous laps. Can I get a hat trick? Yep, 3 clean laps of this section. Very happy with that. Last section of the day, and I've only dropped 1 dab in this lap. Can I keep the flow and clean this one too? I know I can, and I've got a lot of confidence now, so I speed through as fast as possible. I don't feel 100% on this bike yet, but the more time I spend riding it, the nicer it feels. I can see why I liked this frame when I had it 14 years ago. I still think the forwards tilted bars probably make my riding sketchier, but I can see the advantages to it if you can get used to it. But overall, it's been a fun experiment regarding the brakes, and even if a rear disc isn't totally ideal for a 26-inch comp bike, I really love how it's felt and performed. The front rim brake has its downsides, but the advantages for some techniques definitely make it worthwhile for comp riding. I can see why 20-inch comp bikes like this brake setup, and I take back my criticisms I've been vocal about in the past. Back to the section, and so far I'm clean with just 2 gates left. Another side up deals with the first, and another hook deals with the second. Another clean section and my best lap yet, with just 1 dab for my 8-rig impersonation in the first section.
Stoked.
Good right there.
Cheers, Ross. Thanks for observing.
Time to hand my 3rd lap card in and wait for the score to be calculated.
Yeah, you feeling okay now?
Thank you very much.
Before we get to the results, I'm going to share some of Ross's riding. Now, a full disclaimer for him. He had fallen off his mountain bike a few days ago and had a hefty bruise on his thigh and a very stiff leg, so it was a bit of a struggle for him to ride. I also had to go on his bike and was amazed at how bad his brakes were. The rims had a worn grind and the power just wasn't quite there. I'd have really struggled to complete any sections if my brakes were like that.
Gutted.
But despite his struggles, he's still a great rider, and between some unlucky dabs, he did some real nice moves. Ross was the only person I saw hit this kicker, and even if it did end up in getting an elbow to the ribs, I guess my respect for trying it.
Just like elbowed my chest. I'll give that a go again, I think, yeah.
Ross also had an unfortunate crash, which ended up in his back brake lever snapping.
Snap my lever though. To a classic.
Fortunately, he didn't snap his wrist, and I lent him my bike for the next section. Of course, Ross and I weren't the only people there, and it was great to see kids of all ages, girls and parents all riding.
friends. Woo! Yay. A big thank you to all the observers, because that has meant we can do a big trial like we did today. And finally, thank you to all the riders, right? Without the riders, nothing happens, so that was absolutely brilliant. So, for primary, which is the youngest category, in white, in third place, Audrey. Second place, Isla. In first, we have Austin. Big cheer, hands up high. Audrey. Hands up, Audrey. Cool, well ridden guys. Okay, and then we have primary senior in second place, Joshua. And in first place, Finlay Boyle. Right, well done. Cool. Well done. So novice category, but the younger ager category. So in third place, we have Harry Little. In second place, we have Cameron. And in first place, Sarah. Right, hands up, big photographs, lots of photographs, cool. Now we move on to novice senior. So in third place, we have Eden Jones. He's a bit tall, isn't he? In second, we have Paul Tate. And taking the win today, Alex Cathcart. Right, hands up, come on. Get it going. Yeah, that's it. Okay, now we move on to enter. And in third place, we have Carl Waitman. Yeah, well done. And in second place, from Cumbria, Oliver Cooper. And taking the win today, Ben Shepherd. Well done. Okay, and now we move on to expert. And in third place, another Cooper, Elliot. Well done. In second place, Eddie. Well done. And with a very impressive, near perfect ride, we have Ali C. Alistair Clarkson. Yeah, it's impressive. Okay. And that's it, you're off. Other than, can I make sure? But yeah, thank you very much everybody. It's been a great day. Thanks for clearing up.
So there we go, we are all done, and I have got myself a gold medal. Can't believe it. To be fair though, the bike was riding so well. Took me maybe a lap and a half to really kind of get used to it, but once I did, it feels so capable and real comfy to me. This is much more the geometry I'm used to. Basically feels like a long hex, which is ideal. And I can totally see why mod riders love the rear disc and front rim brake. The rear disc is amazing for modulation, the front brake is amazing for just instant stopping, and when you're into hook position, the grip you get in the front tyre is insane. It's so precise. So even though it's a little bit noisy riding down the hills, this is actually a real nice brake combination for the competition trials. And of course, if you want to know more about this bike, I do have my bike build video, which I'll link down below, where you get to know exactly what I'm running. There goes Ross. Bye-bye. I'm really glad I came, because it was 50-50 this morning whether or not I'd come because of my dodgy ankle, which I rolled yesterday. Fortunately, on the bike, it's not that painful. It's just a little bit painful to walk. I'm gonna give it a rest. Fingers crossed it'll be absolutely fine. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I had an absolutely amazing day. I really do like it here. I liked the bike, I liked the company, and we had such amazing weather for it. Huge thanks to David and all the guys and gals for making this event happen. Huge thanks to all the riders, old and new, who turned up and makes this event possible. If you guys do want to enter some competitions, I highly recommend it. Doesn't matter your skill level, doesn't matter your bike, doesn't matter your age, just get to a competition. I'm sure there'll be one locally to you. But anyway, have an amazing week, and I will catch you next time. So take care everyone, bye bye.